everybody. So today I thought it would be kind of fun to do a little retrospective. I have been working very hard on my top 100 list, and I've been doing 10 videos where I went over all of that, and I had a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoyed that. I hope there were some surprises, some movies maybe that you hadn't heard of before that you want to go check out. And so I thought I would kind of do sort of a summary of the movies and talk about different trends and different things like that. Top 100 list, and I have to admit, while I was doing it, some things got moved around, some things got changed, and there are probably a couple that I had at the bottom that if I had to do it all over again, that I probably would have not included, but I still really love them, so I'm okay with that. But I don't know, it was just I wasn't very diligent about like making sure that I didn't make any alterations because I'd remember, oh my gosh, I forgot to include. So then I got to take one out, but I've already done 2 videos, so I can't take one of the lower ones out. So that happened, but oh well, what are you going to do? So let's talk about it though. So we had 100 movies, of course, and the most popular decade of movies for me, kind of maybe surprisingly actually, was the 2010s. I had 19 films that were made in 2010. I would have thought it would have been the 90s because that was such a formative period, but really the end of the 90s, I didn't watch very many movies because I was in college and I was pretty busy. And so I have 17 in the 90s. So that was interesting to me. I had 13 in the 2000s, 14 in the 80s, 8 in the 70s, 11 in the 60s, 11 in the 50s, 5 in the 40s, and 2 in the 30s. So that was pretty interesting to me. 31 in 2000 and plus. So there you go. 1995 was my most popular year. I had 6 films that year. I had Toy Story, Babe, Clueless, A Little Princess, While You Were Sleeping, and Before Sunrise. So that was a pretty good year, at least for me at the movies. And that makes sense too, because I was 14. That was a really, formative time in my movie going life. So then we have the most recent films to make my list were Wonder Woman, Your Name, and Sing Street. Those are the 3 most recent, and those are so great. So I think that's interesting. Then also I had the biggest number of movies in as far as genre are dramas. I had 53 dramas. I had 34 comedies, 33 romances. Some of these obviously are going to be romances that are also comedies, so there's some crossover on these numbers. And I had 30 family films in my list, 22 fantasy, which is a little higher than I would have thought. Their definition on Letterboxd for fantasy is fairly tame. Something like Scrooge included as a fantasy, which I mean, I guess, but I don't know. I don't really think of that as fantasy. So anyway, it's interesting. Horror, I only had 2 horror movies, Jaws and Wait Until Dark. So I had 13 musicals and 12 science fiction films and 11 thrillers. But again, their definition of thriller is pretty tame. They have Spotlight considered to be a thriller, which I wouldn't really consider to be a thriller. I guess the rest are pretty legit. I don't really think of Inception as a thriller either, but it's interesting still. Nonetheless, 37 films that were, I would consider classics that were before 1980 in my list of 100. So that was interesting. And the shortest film in my list was Cinderella at 80 minutes. And most of the shorter ones were all animated films because those tend to be short. And the shortest were Cinderella, Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, Alice in Wonderland, Sleeping Beauty, 101 Dalmatians, and Toy Story. So there you go. That is the shortest. The longest in my list is Lawrence of Arabia at 3 hours and 48 minutes. And then Ben-Hur, Schindler's List, Lord of the Rings, The Sound of Music, Hoop Dreams, Boyhood, It's a Mad, Mad World, Amadeus, and The Music Man. we kind of forget that that movie's as long as it is. 8 movies in my list of top 100 that were not originally in English. I had Summer Wars, Umbrellas of Cherbourg, The Tale of Princess Kaguya, Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind, Babette's Feast, Afterlife, Spirited Away, and Your Name all made that list. As far as actors that appeared the most in movies that I had on my list, the number 1 is John Ratzenberger, because he was in because I had 5 Pixar movies on my list and he was in all 5. So he was in Toy Story, WALL-E, Up, Inside Out, and The Incredibles. So there you go. John Ratzenberger is the king of my list. Then I had several that were in 3 movies on my list. I had Harrison Ford, Buddy Hackett, Sandra Bullock, and the great voice actor Sterling Holloway. Harrison Ford was in Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Fugitive, and Star Wars. Buddy Hackett was in Music Man and Little Mermaid, and It's a Mad, Mad, Mad World. Sandra Bullock was in Gravity, in While You Were Sleeping, and The Prince of Egypt. Sterling Holloway was in Winnie the Pooh, Alice in Wonderland, and It's a Mad, Mad, Mad World. So there you go. I had a ton of people. Oh, also I had Verna Felton was in 3 movies on my list. The great voice actor. She was in Alice in Wonderland, Cinderella, and Sleeping Beauty. So yeah, Hermione Baddeley was in 3 movies on my list. She was in Secret of NIMH, Mary Poppins, and Scrooge. And I think she was the mom in Mary Poppins, I'm pretty sure. I had 22 animated films on my list, and I'm not including Mary Poppins and Paddington on that countdown because they are the live action merging. And I don't know, I just don't really think of those as animated films. So I have Inside Out, Spirited Away, The Incredibles, WALL-E, Up, Toy Story, Your Name, Beauty and the Beast, Tangled, The Little Mermaid, Nausicaa, Alice in Wonderland, The Tale of Princess Kaguya, 101 Dalmatians, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Prince of Egypt, Song of the Sea, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, The Secret of NIMH, and Summer Wars. My some thoughts about my list. I really do love all of the films I picked. I tried to, have some variety and make it an interesting list, not make it super predictable. I knew that everybody would basically know my top picks. My most popular director was definitely Steven Spielberg. 5 movies that made my list. Frank Capra had a couple. Pete Docter had a couple. Hayao Miyazaki had a couple. Richard Linklater had a couple. So there were some. Alfonso Cuarón had 2. So there's some good variety in here in this list. You had some really fun things. Rob Reiner had 2 with Princess Bride and When Harry Met Sally. I think it's an interesting list because a lot of the best movies ever made didn't make my list. Citizen Kane, as far as craft, it was on there early, but I ended up taking it off just because I was trying to be really honest with the films that I really love the most, that are my favorite, not necessarily ones that I think are the best made. So that's why you didn't see something like Citizen Kane on my list. So let me know what you thought of the list. Did you enjoy this? Do you enjoy me doing this? And what would you like me to rank next? I like doing these more sort of thorough rankings and really putting some thought into them. Not that other people don't put thought into their rankings, but I don't know, just some of the rankings, it's just not my thing to do on a, but I'd like to continue to do a weekly series where it's something that's very, very thought out and very, and where I'm really, profiling the films and not just kind of, ranking all the Marvel movies. I don't know, that's just not as interesting to me as something like this top 100 list that I did. So let me know what you think. And thanks so much. Please subscribe to my channel and I'll talk to you later.